Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the administrative and purchasing. Again, this is just covering the administrative side and procurement. So if you are an entity that wants to know more about mill patterns, I will briefly kind of discuss them just a little bit. This is more geared for directors or owners just wanting to know more about the administrative side. So we do, again, have mill pattern training for and it will be this afternoon at 1. We are doing both of these trainings every second Tuesday of the month. So we used to have one full day. It's just it got to be a lot, especially doing Zoom. So we put it up in half. We do administrative in the morning, and then in the afternoon we will do our mill patterns. And that way the right people come to the right trainings, because it is hard already to take a full day out of your schedule. But then whenever on top of that you have sitting for 5 hours is not fun. So we wanted to split it up a little bit. Okay, so get to know your consultant. On page 4 of the training manual, we have your consultant. So it is in there. Your consultant is by county, and I'm going to go ahead and just let people know this. We've had a lot of questions about this year. Your consultant is your consultant. You don't get to pick. If you don't like your consultant, I'm sorry. Your consultant is your consultant. So it is again by county. It is on page 4. It lists who that is. We do have two new ones if you've been on the program for a little while. Denise Whelan retired last February, and Pat retired in October. But if you go online, if you go to the resource library, which I'll talk about here in a moment, we have the training manual out there, and it's the most current updated one, and we just put the newest one out in December. So it does have Sandy, who took Pat's position. Her name is Sandy Bullard. Her information is out there, and then Leanne Roush is the one that took Denise Whelan's position. So you can call them anytime for technical assistance. You can also contact our office, and the phone number is listed right here. We also have an email address. So we are back to teleworking. We've had this email address for a couple of years, but people were not, we're doing a lot more with technology now than what we were before. But so we did go back to teleworking. So we were all back in September. And then right before Thanksgiving, they had us kind of go back. We have some people that are up here a couple days a week, some that aren't. But the CACFP website down here, or the email address, it goes to the whole CACFP team. So if you email something here, it will go to like 5 or 6 people. Whereas before, you may only have one person's email address, which you can email them, but this will go to everybody on that team. We do the 3 people, or there's multiple people that have access to that. There's like 5 or 6 of us that have access, but we do have, the team is Lisa King, and she's been here for several years. Rhonda Stevenson has now gone to our school side, and Jennifer Pryor has taken her position. If anybody did summer, she was also a summer monitor with us. And then Karen Davis, Edgar went and took Kathy. We've had a lot of changes in our office. We've had a lot of shift changes. So Edgar is no longer family daycare home, and he helped with summer. Jennifer Pryor is mostly helping with at risk. Karen Davis is the one who took Edgar's position, and she's helping a lot with family daycare home and sponsors. So, and then Lisa King. So you may hear some different names, but we've all kind of switched positions just a little bit. My name is Kendra Mervelt. I am the director of training. So you may get to know me. You'll see me around quite a bit because I'm doing most of our trainings. So integrity is a big thing with USDA. We are still doing reviews. That has not been waived. Schools are not going to get reviews this year. It is something with USDA, but that has not been waived for CACFP. We are, for the most part, still doing them unannounced. You may get a little bit of notice about it because we might ask for documentation. Actually, we will be asking you for documentation, but the documentation that we're using, and we may just use that to do a review away from your center, but we still have to come out and observe, but we just may be doing most of the review offsite. If you are declared serious deficient, you are required to attend training. That training must... and this is for your review, you must attend training within 60 days of your exit conference. And then any of your monthly trainings, again, you can sign up on our training calendar. It's once you log into our CACFP application system. You can come to any that you want. We've taken things and kind of taken it out a little bit. Like we're having the admin and purchasing. We're doing the meal patterns. We have one just for infants. It's just, it goes a little bit more in depth about infants. We're doing one on if you're a multi-sided entity. We have one that's called the VCA, which is viability, accountability, and capability. And I'll talk a little bit about that. We also have at risk. So we're doing quite a bit of trainings. And the last training that we're also doing is an application training. So if you need assistance filling out your application, Cassie is doing an application training on the first Tuesday of every month, where this one is the second Tuesday of the month. Just a reminder that all your records must be readily available at the institution at all times. Again, your reviews are more unannounced. Like I said, more just because they are supposed to be, but with COVID, we may be giving you some of heads up. Just because we know things are changing and the numbers have gotten high again. So if you're closed or anything like that, please make sure you let us know, because if not, we may be contacting you to do a review. They may be calling to ask. I haven't really asked some of the consultants what they're doing, but we can come out at any time. We can look at any of the documentation. So just again, it must be available at all times. So this is the email address. The web address, I apologize. This is the web address. This is where you go to fill out your application and agreement. That's also where you go to access our training calendar, to do your claim. And this is where our resource library is located. So our resource library is, all you do is you go to this website. You do not have to be logged in. You just click the resource library. This is where our training manual is. This is where we're keeping our slides. These slides will be out there indefinitely. So if you want to go back, if you did not get the slides I sent yesterday, or you just didn't print them out, the slides are always going to be available out on the resource library. We also have interactive forms. So we have forms that are in your manual that are either in Excel or PDF that can be interactive, that you can type into. And if those are under worksheets, so if you scroll all the way down, again, that's under worksheets. Now, the training calendar, you do have to log into your application side to see for the training calendar to pop up. Also, to have access to claims, there is a separate section. You click on claims, and it will take you there. You do have to log in. You have to have a different login access for claims. Now, with the training calendar, just so you are aware, we are not sending out certificates after the course. We stopped doing that in October. What we do is after the training, we see that, make sure that you're signed up in the training calendar, and then we take the Zoom information. And then what it does is it will pull up, we'll notice that you came, and we have to do something in our system, and that training is going to show up in the business maintenance page at the bottom. Eventually, we would like it to where it shows your name. I don't think right now it's going to show your name. It's just going to show that someone attended. Again, with COVID, we've been using the system a little bit. Last year was the first year to use that training calendar, but now with COVID, we've had to make it, we're trying to do little things to make it work for us right now, but there's a lot of things we would like to change. Eventually, we'd love it if you click on it and have your name, and then they print you out a certificate. But again, we're just inching along and having it do what we can make it do at this point. Just because of COVID, this is something that we didn't think we would need right now. So the federal fiscal year is October 1 to September 30th. So again, when we look at documentation, we look from October 1 to September 30th. As of September 30th of 2020, make sure you take all the information, past years, and put it someplace else. You do have to keep past 3 years records plus current year. So you will need, we're going into fiscal year 2021. It's what we're in right now. So you'll need your last year's records, which are 2020. You'll need your 2019 and your 2018. Those need to be someplace, because just in case when you look at information from the past, which is very unlikely, but it's a regulation by USDA. You have to keep your past years 3 and current. Some people choose to keep longer, and you're more than welcome to, but that is just USDA's requirement. So your online application and agreement. And I really kind of harp on this, and I was actually in my boss's office yesterday, and we talked about another situation that this came about. Is you have to make sure that your online application and agreement is always up to date. So if you are changing your times due to COVID, if you're changing your meal times, if you are anything that you're changing, if you have a new contact, if your email address has changed, your address to where you needed stuff mailed to has changed, that needs to be updated. We are still working. Things are still occurring. So if we need to send anything out, we're using email and mail. So that stuff does need to make sure it is updated in our system. If you are an institution and you're contracting for food, we do annually have to have a copy of that contract. If you are contracting for any services, we do have to have a contract approved by our office first before you can go out on bid, and you are the one that's required to create that contract. That's why we approve it, and then once we approve it, you can go out to bid. It is also required that every institution must submit a budget. We're going to talk a little bit more about that too, but you do submit a budget in your application agreement. I don't know when. I'm hoping it is next year, but if you're single-sided, your budget's going to change. If you're multi-sided, it's probably going to stay the same. But we are not. It's just it is a requirement from USD about the budget. Financials are about to be the big thing. Well, put it this way, they've always been the big thing. It's been something that we've been kind of lacking at the state agency. We had RME, which is when USDA comes and audits us. We had it about 4 months ago. I'm getting so confused because it went like April to December. I can't believe we're already at a year. So I'm just very confused about our dates. But we had USDA audit us during COVID. And so some of these changes, we had to make them, but we didn't really get up for it because they knew that these changes were occurring. So what's kind of happened in our office is Debbie Hamilton retired last February. Jennifer Weber was the director of operations, and she took the executive director position. Well, they took Jennifer's position and they broke it up into two. So we have now a director of schools and a director of daycare. And what we're really now focusing on the areas we need to focus on, and financials are a big one. Financials have always been very, very, very big with USDA. Is as a state agency, we haven't really been doing our due diligence. So you're going to hear a lot of things and be like, well, you've never asked for this before. Well, that's because we have needed to be asking for that. So for us to meet requirements, we are going to be asking for a lot more financials and going over a lot more financials. And we're hoping to have just a financial training in the future because, again, we're going to start asking and seeing and looking at a lot more. And then I talked about the application training. Again, it's the first Tuesday of the month. Okay, so once you go to the website, this is what it looks like. So as you can see here, you have your username and password. To click the resource library, which is the second one from the bottom in that left-hand column under that apple, that's the resource library. You click on that, you do not have to log in. But to have access to the training calendar, again, you do have to log into the system. As you can see, also under that apple, it says enter claims. And once you click on that, the page will look again like this, and that's where you have to log in again to enter your claim. But that website that we gave you is where you will go to do everything you need to do for our program. Once you click on the resource library, this is what it kind of looks like. We've updated it since this. I know this says 2017, but we updated this probably in October. We've added a lot more headings. So it should be a lot easier to find information now because we just had like 4 or 5 headings and then everything was kind of mumbled jumbled. Make sure you're looking in the right headings. We now have like adult, we have at risk. I want an infants one. We have a multi-sided, we have meal patterns, we have procurement. So we've broken up and had a lot of different headings, which is great because now it should be a lot easier to find information and things are not so jumbled. Again, so when you log in, when you go to the business maintenance page, right here where it says contact information for CACFP, that is where, like, when we sent an email about yesterday's training, it went to that email address. What we'd like our system to do is in the future, when you register, it will ask for your email address. But right now, again, we're inching it along. What it does is we have the system just pulls up an email address, and it always is going to pull up the one in the contact information. Just always make sure that is someone that does handle CACFP. We had an issue. I had someone call me. They're like, well, we're not getting any information from you. And I asked who their contact information was. Well, it was a church, and it was the pastor, but the pastor doesn't do anything with CACFP. So make sure that the contact person is the person handling CACFP. Now, this is what people don't look at, and it kind of gets frustrating for us, is this is right here. If you are to log in and you go to your application and agreement, this is number 7 for multi-sided. I can't remember where it is for single-sided, but please check on that. So what most people do, this is the contract and agreement that you have with the state agency. What tends to happen a lot of times, you'll click in this, you'll scroll down to the bottom, hit next page, you'll scroll down. I think you have to type your name in and hit submit. Now, a lot of people are not understanding what that they are agreeing to be on our program. And if you can see here, number one is to be financially viable, administratively capable, and have accountability. That's the first thing that's on this on this whole agreement. And that is one thing that we are focusing on because it is a huge deal with USDA. It's something we have been lacking here at the state agency. As you can see here, it is the number one thing in this application agreement. So if you don't have a chance, you need to at least print it out. It's 21 pages. I've actually printed it out recently. My plans, again, is to go through it. I haven't read it in a few years, but there's a lot of things in here that people are like, well, I didn't know that. Well, it's in your application and agreement. You need to understand what you're agreeing to be on our program. And again, this is what it looks like. This is a multi-sided, but this is what it looks like to go to the checklist when you are filling out your application and agreement. We have a section for uploaded documents, and in the past, you have always had access to this. We have taken that access away, so only SDE, we are the only ones that are allowed to upload anything. The reason why is because there were some things that we had to upload ourselves, and the reason why is like your certificate of authority, we have to enter information in, your DUNS number, we have to change your expiration date, and your license, we have to look at your license first if you have anything change with your license and enter the information in. So you were not able to upload it. Well, what happened was is some people started like their DUNS would upload it, but upload it some other way. So it became a big mess. So we've taken all access away. If you have something that needs to be downloaded, then you can send it to the CACFP email address. Or if like, especially if you've been working on your application and agreement, if somebody specifically has asked you for something, of course you can email them directly. But like say you get your DUNS expiration and you get a new one for the year, just send it to the CACFP and then it will get updated. So again, we're going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about the VCA. This is the VCA is being viable, capable, and accountable. Again, we do have a VCA training that's the second Tuesday of, or I'm sorry, this is the second Tuesday. It's the first Tuesday of the month. It is in the afternoon. Again, what it is that you are financially viable. This is the number one thing with USDA. And again, this is something that we've kind of not been, we need to put processes in place to show USDA that we are doing this. What financially viable means is that the purpose of our program is to supply more nutritious meals to kids that may not have access to it. That is the purpose of the program. So the purpose, it's not the purpose of the program to help, like it's to pay for everything. I mean, the purpose of it is to help you buy better quality food for kids that may not have access. So what that means is you have to be financially viable. You do not need our funds to keep your doors open. You are financially viable as an entity. So your center or your institution is financially capable of doing the program without our funds. And because there's a few reasons for that. Again, because they don't want people you have to be, again, the purpose of the program is for better quality food. There have been times, and it could happen again this year, where there may be an interruption where we can't pay. And if that's okay, you should be able to do business as usual, because again, you are using our funds for CACFP, but you're not relying on us to keep your doors open. It's just assistance to help better quality of food. You also have to be very capable of doing the program. You have to be administratively capable, have adequate staffing, and able to manage operations to be in compliance. And the other aspect of the is to be accountable. So you have to have institution oversight, training, monitoring, record keeping, the cost for the program or authorized expenses. That is being accountable. So what VCA is, and we started this year, and again, it's going to be evolving, but we're doing this in phases. So what happens is if you are brand new this year, you are required to fill out what we call a VCA. If you were SD last year, then you're also going to be required to do the VCA before you can come on the program. And it's going to keep going. If you were SD, you're going to have to keep doing it. It may even be, next year that if you are, and it could be for this year, that if we find anything financially, then you are going to be required to do the VCA as well. So VCA is going to be a big thing. So what the VCA is, it's about a 7-page document that we're going to send you, and it covers financial viability. So you're going to have to send us documentation, cash flow, bank statements, and this is as your organization as a whole. We're also going to ask, how are you keeping track of your CACFP funds? What are you going to do in case there's interruptions? We're going to ask if you're capable. We're going to ask for an organizational chart for CACFP. What are the job duties for those? And we're also going to ask questions about how you're accountable. How do you do your meal counts? How do you do all that information? So the VCA is just making sure that you are able and capable of doing this. And yes, we are going to ask for, and people sometimes aren't aware, if you have one account, I'm going to suggest you get one account for CACFP. If you have, because if we see statements and we see transfers coming in and out from other statements, we're going to ask to see those other statements as well, because we have to see how you're handling your CACFP funds. That's if you've been established. We understand if you're new, but if you are new, I would highly suggest get account just for CACFP, because if you are transferring funds in and out, we're going to have to see documentation for those other accounts as well. So now we're going to go over some of the basic responsibilities of the administrative side, since we just talked about the VCA aspect. So as this recording, I can probably send it to you. It will be a little while. We have to get this into a YouTube, but I can probably send this recording to you as well. Okay, so when I talked about copies that we may do the reviews off-site, we've had some that have done them on-site, some that have done them on-site, and this is kind of why. This came about last year before COVID, and it's not us. It is the state auditors. The state auditors are requiring that when we come out to do a review that we get, or for the review that we're looking at, we have to have copies of every single thing that we look at. We have to have copies of receipts, documents, meal observation, applications, enrollment forms. We have to have copies of everything. And again, it's not us, it's been the state auditor, but we have been using that information to do your review off-site because of COVID. We've been kind of wanting this to be changed because we don't have a place to store all the paperwork, and we are storing it. It's just we have no room, and no other state has been asking for this. It's not a USDA thing. Again, it's the state auditor. So if we ask for all copies, this is what we need. We're talking everything that we would look at for review for CACFP. Again, we've gotten the question of who's responsible for paying for this, and that is the center's responsibility. It's kind of the cost of doing business. You can charge that cost off to CACFP, and we'll talk about all that kind of stuff here momentarily, but because it is a CACFP expense, but you will be the one responsible for paying for that. And just to get an idea, are you guys new? Are you just established? Because I think right now we're getting a lot of new people training, so it just kind of gives me a note of who I'm kind of talking to. If you're new, or if you're you just kind of wanted to come to training, since it's kind of broken up in a much smaller sense. This is this year's application, your family size and income application. This is the application that you give out to parents. It is different. We changed it this year to be 1 page instead of 2 pages. Actually, technically it was 3 pages with the enrollment form. We put the enrollment form and the incomes all on the same 1 page. So we've gotten this question, and a lot of people have actually been getting written up for this. It's been a while since this has happened, but every year it is required that you give out new family size and income applications. So if you are using an old one, you have to get the new one. The old one is invalid, so that means all your kids should be on the not eligible list and not on the free, if they happen to be free. So you will take this 1 page. The top part is the enrollment section. The middle part 2, is the income part. And I will say there's been some changes to this. This one is the old one. I need to change this screen out. This is the one that is currently in the manual. We have updated it. There's been some wording changes because it has been confusing. If you go to the resource library and go under center forms, this is out there in a packet by itself, and it is current and up to date. And if you also are looking at on the training manual online, it is also up to date. The ones that we mail out, we got those printed back in September we got them printed. So anytime you get a new one, no matter when you come on, you're gonna get the one with the older version. So at the very top again is the enrollment form, and the center is not allowed. That the only thing the center can put on this form at all is the participant's first name and last name. That's the only thing the center can do. The parent has to be able to fill out everything else. What I will tell you is different from this one versus the new one. So just in case you're using the old one, if you're using the one that we tweaked, it's okay. You can use the old one we tweaked because this form is new. We just tried to make it easier because we were getting a lot of questions and we realized it didn't make sense. So one of the things that we changed is in part 2. It has name list only household members with income, and that's incorrect. It should be, we changed it to name list any other household members not listed above, including children, because it doesn't matter if they have income or not. They need to be located in the second in part 2. The top section is for those enrolled. This part 2 is for anybody else that's not listed above. Something else that we changed out was where it says for institution use, do not write below this line, or if below the line is for the institution to use only at the very bottom. It says free meals, reduced meals, and paid meals, and we changed that to free, reduced, and not eligible. Paid is a term that we use in schools. So we got this from another state, and so we kind of we use theirs as a test, but it didn't end up working well. Just these little tweaks that we made. So paid and not eligible are the same thing. But I kind of also noticed, and I haven't really been hearing complaints, but it's just something I have noticed, is on part 2, it's in part 1, where it has the student's name, it has SNAP, TANF, and FIDPER, but there's no place for SNAP, TANF, and FIDPER in part 2. Because what could be happening is you have a member of the family who maybe like a grandmother that's living with a family, but no one as long as one person in the household is getting SNAP, the whole household is free. But if someone else not listed above is getting SNAP, but maybe someone that lives in the home is, you can just have them put that in all other. Unless I'm trying to see if maybe we can change that someplace to where that makes it all inclusive. So again, with the family size and income and enrollment form, you cannot, only the parent can fill this out. You cannot complete it for the parent. You must distribute and obtain this every year now. So what happened was with if you've been on with the old application, if they just didn't send it in to you, that's okay. But you always had to have a copy of the enrollment form. Well, now that they're on one page, you must have this back, but they only have to fill out the top section. It's not required for them to fill out part 2. So again, the application must be on the current year form. So if it's the one that looks like the one online, or if it's the newest one that we made some tweaks to, that's fine, but it cannot be our 2 to 3 pager. And then a parent is not required to fill out the income section. That's always been the case. You cannot require a parent to fill out the income section. So if a parent puts in the income section an X or an NA or leaves it blank, then that means they're not filling it out. So you would just leave it alone, and it's not required for them to do it. It's only required for them to fill out the top half. So again, I did talk about the enrollment form is at the top, and that part is required. The parent does need to complete the top section, sign it, and return it back to you. Now, if you are a federally funded Head Start, you are not required to do the application. So we do have the old enrollment form, which is just the one-page enrollment form. You can use that. And we kept it back in there. We put Head Start enrollment form. So that way you don't have to do the application, because that would get confusing for your parents. But I will say is I've had a couple of institutions that I was in the field for 10 years, that they had barely to no free and reduced. They were a nonprofit. So if you're a profit, if you are for profit on our program, you have to have so many kids that are free and reduced. If you are a nonprofit entity, you are not required to have any. And we have some that are nonprofit that have literally no kids that qualify for free or reduced meals. So at that point, you are okay to do the Head Start enrollment form only, and just give the application out to parents that may have a child like in foster care or anything like that. When the application is processed, do we give this to the parent? So no, you give this application to the parent. And if you are new, so what's going to happen is when you're new and you've been approved, we approved your application online, then you will be instructed to give this out to your parents and fill it out. When we come out, we'll come out to do what we call a first approval visit. So when we come out to do our approval visit, at that time, we're going to take a look at those applications. When I was in the field, I would go over how to approve those applications. So they will, so in a normal year, they do it in October. So every person will do a new application in October, or when they're new, when they come on the program. But every year around October, you will get a new one. I hope that makes sense. So again, with the federally funded, if you are, like I said, we have a separate enrollment form, so you don't have to have the application stuff because they don't have to fill out. If federally funded Head Start, the kids are automatically free, so there's no reason for them to fill out an application. But we are going to talk about the 2 ways of how you approve. But again, if you are new, your consultant is going to come out when they do the approval visit. They bring you the manual as well. And then they go over it, and then they should be going over how to approve these applications. So we'll ask you to send them out to parents and get them back, but we won't really, it's okay if they're not, because the thing is we can't approve you to be on the program unless you are the 25%. If you are for profit, you have to be with that 25% free and reduced or Title 20. And so that's why we have to have the applications from parents when we come out to do approval visit. So so when we're doing it categorically, so that is categorically is if they're SNAP, TANF, FITPER, or foster. You have to have the full name of the child in the enrolled section. They must have a case number someplace on the application, and it has to be an Oklahoma case number. But that number has to begin with A, B, C, D, H, J, or T. If you get something like a 16-digit number on there, they're giving you their card number, the card that they use for EBT. You don't need the 16-digit number. You have to have their case number. And again, it will start with one of those and it will end with 6 to 9 digits after that. Let's just say it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And sometimes after that, we'll say 001, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 002. And that's usually the person in the household. So it can only be 6 digits or 9. And that's because it's adding the 3-digit to it kind of identifies everybody in the household, or those that qualify. If it's a FITPER, this is if somebody is receiving commodities from an Indian reservation. It's usually we see a social security number, but every tribe might be doing something different. So just to clarify that if you have anybody that attends your center and they're on the Indian roll, that does not qualify. It only qualifies if they're getting commodities from a tribe. This program is based solely on income. It's not based on any other factors. So again, if you're on the Indian roll, it doesn't matter. We only go by income, or if you qualify for one of these, because we're wanting to help people that are food insecure. So once you see the SNAP or TANF on there, the one thing that we do want to let you know, because we've seen people do this quite a bit. I understand that people swipe in for daycare assistance. So when they're swiping in, they're getting daycare assistance. That's what that means. Just because if a parent leaves the form blank on like SNAP or TANF, any of that information, and they don't put any income in there, we've been having people, they would go to that EBT machine and write the number on the EBT machine on the application. And I tell people all the time, we look at thousands of applications every year between schools and daycares, and we can always tell if somebody's writing it in for somebody else. People think it's a number, I know, but we can always tell. We've just been doing this a long time. That when they are swiping in, that is for daycare assistance only. That does not mean they're getting SNAP or TANF. They could be, if they are, and it could be the same number, but then you need to ask the parent if they are getting SNAP benefits and then have them put the number on there. You can't just go to that machine and write it down. The reason why, again, we say it's daycare assistance only, and those qualifications for daycare assistance is different from SNAP for one reason. And just because they do swipe in, it doesn't mean that if you foster to adopt, I had friends that did this. They were getting daycare assistance up until that child was age 6. But just because they were getting daycare assistance, they did not qualify for SNAP. They made too much money. So again, do not go to that EBT machine when they swipe in and take their case number on it and put it on the application. Again, you can ask the parent, do you guys qualify? Do you guys get any SNAP? But just because they're getting daycare assistance, that does not mean that they are receiving food care. They're receiving food stamps. So again, once you go on there, as long as there's one SNAP number or TANF number or FIDPER number on there, it qualifies everybody on there for free. So you fill out the enrollment section. They can leave the second part blank where it talks about income. That part can be blank. And then the parent must sign that form. So if there is income on there, you can disregard it. Just that one SNAP, TANF, or FIDPER number will qualify everybody in the household for free. But again, it has to have the enrollment information at the top, SNAP someplace on the form, and then parent signature. So something else I did want to point out to you on our trainings is you see this little blue box in here that says P12. What that means is this is what's referencing in our training manual. So if you go back to open our training manual, you'll go to page 12, and that's where you'll find this information. Again, these slides will be up. You may have them, you may not have your training manual yet, or again, you can go out to the web and then you can search. But that way you are aware of where we're getting some of this information from when it comes to the training manual. So we'll talk about foster. So a foster child is categorically eligible. So what that means is they are categorically eligible, but they are the only ones. So if you have a foster child, when you look at the form, there is a column for foster. If that box is checked for that child, then that child is free. But that child is the only person that's free. Nobody else on the application is. They might be free, but you have to figure that out if there's a SNAP number someplace or any income listed. The only child that will be free is a foster child. So if they have the foster child's name and click the box, again, they have to have it signed and you're good to go. But if there are other family members or other children that live in the same household with the foster child, they are not automatically free because of the foster child. Again, you do have to have either income or you do have to have a SNAP or TANF in order for them to be qualified. So now let's talk about income applications. So we talked about categorical. That's using SNAP, TANF, FIDPER. That means you put that number down, that 6 to 9 digit number with A, B, C, D, H, J, or T, and everybody in the household's free. Well, what if they don't have one of those numbers? Well, you still have to have the enrolled children at the top. In part 2 is where you list all other household members, if they have income or not. If they don't have income, we'd like for them to check the no income box. It's kind of a big deal with USDA. They really like that box being checked. But what is different from last year or from any other years is on our new form that they only list their monthly gross income. They don't have to list their weekly, their bi-weekly, twice a month, or annual. It's monthly only. That way, hopefully, will help you from doing more math work. Only monthly. And then at this point, once they put in their income information, this parent signs it, an adult signs it, and they have to have the last 4 digits. If they do not have the last 4 digits of their social security number, then it is not a valid application yet. So you have to make sure that you get the last 4 of their digits of their social security number. If they do not have a social security number, then they have to check the box that says none. So again, if it's income, if you're approving it by income, in column 2, they have to list their income amount by month. If they don't have income, they need to check the box. So for instance, like say you have 2 kids enrolled, you have a mom that just had a baby, so the newborn is on there because they're not enrolled yet, even though you could put them in the enrollment section if you wanted to. And then all the parents or anybody else would be listed in column 2, in part 2. And then again, sign with the last 4 of the social or clicking on the box that does not. And again, the new application is by month only. It states that to put their monthly income. So if you see an application that maybe put $25,000 in income, you may probably want to call them and be like, is this your monthly income? Because that sounds, I wish I was making that much money, but it may be their annual income and not their monthly income. And again, it's before taxes. If they do put something different, please contact them and ask them for their monthly. And you can usually kind of tell. Even if they put like $100, you may call and ask them because they may be doing it by week. So because that's how it used to be, but now it is. It used to be whatever they're getting paid, that's what they put on the form. Now it's where they're going to put on the form what they do monthly. We do have applications. So that application that you saw is in English, and that is our application that we changed it because we used to always use USDA's prototype. We changed that application. We got it approved for USDA. The only one that we got approved from USDA is the one in English. We do have other applications in other languages. You can go onto the resource library and it shows you where to go for that. Now, those are done by USDA. They're not done by us. And so they're going to look like the ones from previous years where they just list the income. But you will have to do conversions at that point. And this is what the conversions are. We just keep them in here. If you do have any more questions about this, if I would say reach out to your consultant, especially if you're new, but this is only for other languages. So this is only, and I think they have up to 64 different languages with USDA. So Spanish, you may use this for a Spanish one. Again, there's 64 different languages. We have one school here in Oklahoma in the Panhandle. I think they use 12 to 15 different applications for different languages that they have up there. It's kind of interesting. So now we're going to talk about approving the application. So in part 2, if it's incomplete, it cannot be approved. And when I mean incomplete is you can't approve it for free if it's completely blank or if it's not complete. Or maybe they put all the last household's name, but they didn't put any other information in there. You can call them and say, hey, did you forget to put your income in here? Maybe they didn't check any boxes. It can't be approved if it's incomplete. If part 2 is incomplete, that's when it's called that's when the kids go on the not eligible roster. But what can you do? So maybe they have some information on there that's missing. Maybe you can't read it, it's questionable, or it might be inconsistent. So in that case, you can contact the household. So an example, let's just use the social security number. So it's an income application and the parent signed it, but they didn't put the last for the social, or they didn't put the no social check mark. What you can do is you can contact the household, you can call them, and then you can say, hey, listen, you're missing I need the last 4 of your social for the application that you sent in. Do you mind giving it to me? If they give it to you, you can put it on the application. But if you do that, you have to make sure that you notate. So put like who you talked to, the date that you talked to them, and then what was the conversation, and then notate it. So it could have been no social, called mom, or called Carol. Put that date, and then you initial it of when you talk to them. You also approve these at face value. So at the very bottom of the application is where the institution fills that out. If you do not fill that out, then that application is not approved. So, but again, when you're new, if you are new, don't worry about that. Just get the applications back from the parents, and then we will help you show you how to approve that. But if you've been on the program for a while, the application is not approved until someone from the center signs and fills out the bottom section of that application. So if there's no income reported, like I mentioned earlier, if there's an NA or an X marked out, that does not mean that's a no income. If it's a zero, if they say that they make $0, then they can put 0, they can write 0 in there, or they can check the box. If they're just leaving it blank or doing an A or putting an X through it, that does not mean it's a 0 income application. But you can approve a 0 income application, meaning that they're stating they get 0 income. You can approve that if they, again, put zeros or check the boxes. And they sign it and put the last 4 of their social. That is considered a no income application. You may ask them, are you sure you don't get any and people, we've gotten this before, well, why would they put 0 in there? If they're bringing their child to daycare and they're not working, then why would they bring their child to daycare? A lot of the times it would be because maybe they're students and they're getting student loans. If they get student loans, they're not required to put that amount on the application. So they may not have a job, but they may be getting student loans, and that's how they're paying for childcare. So, or they have childcare assistance because they don't have any income. So, but if it's just left blank, it is not a zero income application. It means they're not eligible. They didn't fill it out. It's incomplete. If you do have questions, and again, you can contact your consultant about this. This will happen very rarely, but say they say, no, I have no income, but they're coming in every day and like their Sonic shirt, their Sonic hat, and they're bringing their child in, but they're like, no, I don't have any income. You can do what we call verify for cause. So in this situation, again, I would have you contact your consultant and they can walk you through that process. It's something that schools do as well. So again, if that ever happens, you can and are allowed to verify for cause, but I would contact your consultant for further guidance. So like I was mentioning, each application must be signed by, it's called the determining official, and you decide at your agent, at your center or your entity, who's the determining official. We don't care. You get to decide who is the one who's approving the application. So they have to sign it and date it for it to be valid. So there's two things that you can do on here for the effective date, and I'll go ahead and just tell you right now, I would do it the date the parent signs it. So if the parent signs it on, say, my examples is if they sign it on June 30th, but you were on vacation and you come back to work on July 5th, and that's when you approve it. You can approve it based on the date that you sign it, or you can do it based on the date the parent signs it. And I will just be honest, just do it the date that the parent signs it, because with that, if the parent signed it in June 30th, then that means you can have the benefits in June and July. But if you sign it in July and you go by when you do it, then the benefits won't start till July. But you have to be consistent. You can't go back and forth and be like, well, this month I want to do it this way. This month I want to do it this way. You have to do it consistently. But just to be honest, so you sign it, you date it. So if the parent signs it June 30th and you approve it on the 5th, you approve the application on the 5th. It's just that application is approved. You can use the effective date of the parent signature. Don't backdate. You can't backdate anything, but go ahead when you sign it, put the right date that you did approve it, but you can use the benefits the date that the parent signs it. We also have some other definitions that I won't go over, but if you are curious, they are on pages 15 through 20. If you want to determine the household size, we get questions about that. If you can't find it in the manual, please feel free to call us or your consultant. Determining household size. So an example of that is, say a parent they call and say, I have a child that's in college. Can I put them on this application? Yes, they can, because they're still technically a part of that household, even though they're away at school. Determining household income. That's another one that we just kind of discussed, is if a person is getting student loans, they're not required to put the student loans on the application. And then any income exclusions. And we have some, especially for military. The military exclusions are on page 17 and 18. So they may be some exceptions where they don't have to put their funds. So just look at that page to see if it's an example of income exclusions could be if they get child support like once a year, they don't have to list it. But if they're getting child support consistently, then they do have to list it on the application. So we talked about a Head Start. So this is for anybody that's federally funded. If it's a federally funded Head Start, all children are automatically free. They do not have to do the enrollment. They do not have to do the application. They just have to do our enrollment form. We cannot accept the Head Start enrollment form because it does not have what we need per USDA. So if you are a federally funded Head Start, all kids in the federally funded Head Start are free, and they do have to have an enrollment form for everybody. And you can use with the enrollment form. If you're already a Head Start and you've already been going on, you can still use the old one. It's the same. It hasn't changed, because it does have lines down there where the parent can sign for up to 5 years, as long as the information at the top is the same. And usually if you're Head Start, the information at the top is going to be the same. If it's a state funded Head Start, it does not automatically qualify for free, only a federally funded Head Start. And we have very few, but we do have some state ran Head Starts. So once you fill out the applications, or once the parents have the applications and you approve them if the child qualifies for free meals, you approve them if they qualify for reduced, or if they're not eligible. So if they're under a certain income level, which again your consultant will go over with you, then they're going to be on the free. If they're kind of in between free it's on a scale. If it goes into this section, it's called a reduced section. If that's where their income lies, then that'll go on the reduced roster. And then any kid that is not eligible, or maybe they didn't fill out the income application part, or if they go over the dollar amount that's set for by USDA, then they'll go on the not eligible roster. So we have 3 rosters: the free, reduced, and not eligible. Every child that is enrolled at your center needs to be and must be on a roster, even if they don't participate in the program. And we have some instances where they don't participate. So you may have an infant that they're not participating at the time until they're 1, and maybe the parent hasn't filled out the application yet. But a lot of times, if you have an infant, go ahead and fill out the application, and you may, if they have a waiver, we'll talk about infants a little bit later, but you may have a situation where it's a dietary thing. The child has so many allergies that the parent feels better if they bring all the kids food and you don't worry about it. So that kid's not participating. Or maybe they don't ever come whenever there's a meal service. I've had one like that too. I had one center that did snack at 2:30. And after they picked up the school age kids, they did not offer another snack. So they did not have, a lot of times you'll have a 2:30 snack and it would be a 4 o'clock snack, and they did not do a 4 o'clock snack. So all their kids that were there from 4 to 6 never ate a meal. So that means they are not on the program. If you're not on the program or not participating, they still have to be on a roster, but you don't have to have any income information. You don't have to get anything from them if they're not participating. But what you will do is make sure that, again, they're on a roster. I'd probably put them on the not eligible roster. And at the end of the month is what you do is you mark if that child was there or not there. If they were there and ate a meal, they participated for that month. But what we would do is if they did not participate is you would put NP. So instead of marking them X for being there, they were there because we're going to see them in your attendance records, but they did not participate on the program and you're not claiming their meals. That's what that means. So again, it doesn't happen all the time, but I do have some centers that had some children that did not participate in the program. But if they're on your attendance records, then if they're on attendance records, they have to be on a roster. So with the forms that you're doing that we're going to talk about, they must be maintained daily by month at each site at any institution participating in CACFP. So those applications you get once a year, and then the rosters, you mess with them once a month. You mark once a month if they were there. That's what you use that information to claim. But all the other records that we're going to talk about need to be maintained daily by month for each site. And the records have to be kept at site that's approved in the application. So if we come and you're like, well, my records are at home, that's not an approved location. I can tell you that right now. Your application, they have to be at the center or in another approved site. So maybe you're multi-sited and you have one building where you keep all your past records, then that's where it should be at. I don't think we have anybody that's doing at risk and regular center. If you are, you do have to keep those separate records. You have to indicate which one is at risk and which one's your regular meals. And again, you can only serve regular meals during the school calendar year. You can't do it during summer break, but you can do it during Christmas break, spring break, because the calendar year is like if a school starts in August 15th and ends May 15th, you can serve meals August 15th to May 15th. But once the school in your area is closed, then you can no longer serve at-risk meals. So what are some things that we are going to need? On CACFP, you must have daily attendance records. We have a form that's on page 41. We may need arrival and departures. There's a couple of reasons why you may keep these. If you were SD, we may require it. If you serve more than 3 meals per day and you're using the regular attendance record, we will have you keep that as well. But to be honest, if we ever need arrival and departures, I will go ahead. I would look at DHS's. I wouldn't make you keep a separate form. If you serve more than 3 meals per day, we'll make you keep another form. Is anybody in here serving more than 3 meals per day, or are you only doing, like, say, breakfast, lunch, and after school snack?
So we have breakfast twice a day. I don't know if that's counted as a 4th meal, but we have kids coming in early, and then kids coming 8:30ish. So we have it set for now, like whenever you come in, you get,
Yeah. So, but do you really only do like breakfast, lunch, and PM snack?
yes,
Just your breakfast is longer because of the kids coming in and out with school.
right,
So you only do 3 meals,
3.
which
Okay,
is
gotcha. Mhm.
this is like if you're doing supper as well, and you do have a lot more requirements if you're serving 4 meals per day. You can't. So the deal is people sometimes ask, you can serve breakfast because of the times you're open, breakfast, lunch, PM snack, and supper. But a child, even though they may be there for 4 meals, you can only claim 3. So that's why you have to keep extra paperwork. And I will tell you this
So
now.
what we do,
Huh?
Kendra, I'm
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt you. I was trying to say,
that's okay.
and also we have a kid coming in right now, but we serve breakfast, lunch, dinner, and we also do a PM snack because of when the last kids leave. But we
Okay, so
did
you're
understand how
serving
you say
four
claim 3 meals.
meals.
Is that what you were just gonna tell us?
So yeah, it sounds like you are
Well-
serving 4 meals.
Well, okay, I'm breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 2 snacks, a afternoon snack and a PM snack, so I guess so.
Yeah, so the
Four,
PM
five.
snack and afternoon is the same. It's if you were doing, say, morning.
Okay,
Yeah, because you may have 2 shifts. You may have one at 2:30 for your regular daycare, one they get from nap, and then you have a second shift at, say, 4
right,
when your school age kids come in. So it's one.
okay, no, our second shift is at 8:30. Our second,
Okay.
our PM snack is at 8:15
Okay,
PM
so you probably have like
also.
a PM snack and then you have a late snack. So yeah, you would be serving.
Okay,
more.
yes, that's what,
Yeah. So as long if you are
Yes.
serving more than yes, you have an AM snack, we have PM snack, and we have late PM snack. So if you are serving more than 3
Okay.
meals, so it sounds like you are serving more than that, then you would keep, and we'll go over the DROMS form and how it works, because even though say the
Okay.
kids are there for all meals, you can only claim 3, and it can only be 2 main meals and a snack. It cannot be breakfast, lunch, supper. So, and we will talk about that. And just some helpful hints, because it sounds like you are open late. We've had people ask about the supper. What just happened here? Hold on. Can you still hear me? I can still see me. I don't know what just happened.
It just skipped a bit, but we see you now.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Let me see here. That was weird. My PowerPoint just kind of shut down. We just got new laptops, so I was hoping my other one did die. Okay, I may have to shut this up. Okay, as long as you can still hear me and see me, we'll talk about this. So if you I had some centers and they were doing dinner at say 6, or they would do dinner at 5 and then close at 6. And I told them, I was like, you guys, I'm telling you, you may not want to do dinner. And there's several reasons. Is because what was happening was they close at 6. Well, the meals can't be taken off site. So the kids if they're eating at 5, the meals cannot be taken off site. Let's see here. I need to close some stuff down. I'm gonna close that down. Give me just 1 second. Sorry, I'm trying to, it's not letting me do stuff. It says I have too much stuff open, which is very plausible. Okay. So what was happening is I finally, after several years, told them, I go, I would not serve supper. And I go, what you'll find is because the lady that was cooking was having to stay till 7 or 8 because of cleanup and stuff. Because, the kids may be eating at 5, but you still have to clean up. And it's a whole meal, just like lunch. What was also happening is that they would have all these kids stay late, and the parents would sit out in the parking lot and wait for the kids to get done eating and then come by. Well, the center finally decided we're not going to do supper, and they dropped their enrollment, or not their enrollment, they dropped at 4 p.m. They lost half of their kids. Well, when you do that, you can let go of teachers because you don't need all the teachers there. So it was saving them a lot of money because, well, one, you're having to pay overtime, and then you're actually open later. And then because you have to pay somebody to clean up afterwards, and then you're paying all these teachers to be there. So it was just very interesting. If you close at 6, now if you don't close till later, I would definitely suggest it. But they found that it ended up not working correctly when they opened at when they closed at 6 o'clock. Okay, let me see if I can get this working again. This is very bizarre. I'm glad I brought my personal laptop just in case. Let's see here. Let me share this screen. And let me see if I can get this working again. I apologize for that. This is what you gotta love about technology. Okay, there we go. Now we're back. Sorry about that. Okay, so I hope that answers some questions. When we talked about the SDE, is connected. Okay, I just have to use my screen personally here. We can do that. This is interesting. Well, I'm glad I know that this is going to do this. Okay. Let me see if I can get this up going again. Sorry. Okay, so you guys were seeing what I was seeing. Okay, here we go. Screen 1. Okay. When we talk about time in, time out sheets, like I was stating before, that I would probably just have you use the DHSs, and that's fine. If we need to look at time in, time out sheets, there are some instances where we need them. We are allowed to look at DHS's information. DHS is allowed to look at ours as well. It's actually like it's gonna work again. DHS can look at our documentation as well. So we may go ahead and just look at, if we need to look at their stuff, we can look at DHS information. Like I said, DHS can look at our information. We can look at anything that's DHS's as well. Okay. Hopefully this won't keep going in and out. So now we have what we call the DROMS form. So if you are serving more than 3 meals per day, I would definitely do the DROMS form. I have some centers that only do serve the 3 meals per day. They do lunch, breakfast, lunch, and PM snack, and they like using this form better. We have it out there for if you do 3 meals, but we have it out there if you do all meals. And I think we even have one for 4 meals because it gets really big when you have all the meals out there. That's located on the DROMS form. But this is an example of the regular DROMS form, the big one that we have. I'm going to kind of explain it to you. So what you do is, and I'll give you some hints of how I would do this paperwork. So what I would do is, we have it in Excel. I would list all the kids' names in the column where it says children, and then in their age, I would put that in, and then I would print this out every month, and I'd give it to your teachers and have them mark. What they do is you mark on there the meals the child was there and ate. So as you can see here, Steffi was there on the 3rd, and she had breakfast, lunch, PM snack, and supper. Fill it out. And then at the end of the month, so the reason those are circled is because since they had 4 meals that day, they're not allowed to claim 4 meals for that child. So for this day, that they are not going to claim supper. They're going to, the kid was there for breakfast, but they're not going to claim supper. So they are circling or highlight or however you want to do it on the meal that they're not going to claim. But what I would do, it's very helpful, is you go back into the Excel file. So you'll take the paper copy that the teacher filled out at the end of the month, and then go back in to where you listed the kids' names, and then you'll go in and you'll put an X or a 1 in the meals that you're going to claim. So that's how you can kind of do it, is like, this is the paper copy, this is the one the teachers filled out, and then you use the one in the electronic copy and only put the meals that you're going to claim, because it will calculate for you on the side. The reason why I say that is because, like with this one, if you were to count, like you can see that they only ate 9 meals. It gets very tricky. It gets very mumble jumbled if you do it by hand. I would have the teacher fill it out by hand, but when you're actually claiming, I would take the paper copy, and what you would do on the 3rd is you would just put lunch, PM snack, and supper. We have to see that that child was there and that's on the paper copy, but you're only claiming the 3 meals. So you can put that in the electronic copy and then print that out. And then that's what you would use to, so you have the paper copy showing us the meals they were there. You'll print out the electronic copy, and then you can erase it again and print out another blank page and give it to your teachers, and then do it again for the next month. There's several reasons why it's very important. People are not putting down the meals the child was there, but they're not claiming. Let's say that this child, that they always claim supper. So they're like, well, I'll just put lunch, supper, snack, but I'm not going to put the child was here for breakfast, even though he was. Well, what if that child leaves early that day and you didn't mark him for breakfast? Well, you can't go back and put information in there. So put the meals that the child ate. And not just that, but this has to match your production records. So what we're seeing is, say you had 20 kids on the 3rd for breakfast, but you're only claiming 9 kids because you claimed the others at supper because they were there at supper time and breakfast. Well, you may only claim 9 kids, but you had 20 kids there for breakfast. So there should be 20 kids here. Sorry, I do that because I have 2 screens. You have 20 kids that were there in attendance, and that should match your production records. But you're only claiming 9 children because they were there for 4 meals. So I hope that makes sense. And that's, again, a helpful hint that I told you about having the paper copy. Just tell the teachers, mark them if they're there. And then you can have the paper copy and then go into electronic one, and only on the electronic one put what you're claiming, because it will automatically calculate it for you. And that way we see the paper copy that they're there, and we see the electronic copy that you're showing that you did not claim more than 3 meals per day. So I hope that makes sense. And again, if you have 20 kids there in care for breakfast, I'm assuming if you're saying that you only had 9 kids on your production records, then what that means is you did not serve the others a reimbursable meal. So your production records have to match your attendance. So if you have 20 kids there, then you should have 20 kids on your production record, but maybe only claiming 9 because the rest had supper, but you had 20 kids there, so they have to be on your production records. So, and your attendance. So, okay, some more record keeping. So food purchasing form. So this must be used to itemize all receipts at the end of the month. So if you are buying from Walmart, Sam's, any of those that have just the normal receipt, Brahms, you have to do what we call the food purchasing form. You do have to attach your original receipt to it. You can have a copy as well, because I understand they fade, but you have to have the original receipt attached to it. Any item that does not count towards a reimbursable meal, that goes into the non-reimbursable section. So, and I have a copy of this form. I'm going to show you what it looks like if you haven't used it before. But a helpful hint is that the reason for this form is because 1, the receipts fade. 2 is because it's not always a clear description of what it is on the receipt. So an example is it was a summer feeding, and there was a deal on there that said HP 3456XR or something crazy like that. And I'm like, well, what is this? And she's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, yes, I see it on your receipt, but that's what you put on your food purchasing form. What is it? So she called Walmart, and it was ink. So you can put the HP 45, whatever it is, but put like /ink, computer ink. We have to know what it is. That's one reason to put it on the form. So when you're transferring it and you're like, what was that? Like, this says like GVS grape. What was it? Well, it could be like grape value grape juice. So you can put GVS grape juice or something on there, because we do need to know what that is. So the form is not required. So there is a time when you don't have to require to do the food purchasing form. The only time it's not required to do the food purchasing form is if you are using a vendor. Like if you're using like Cisco, Benny Keith, Tankersley, any of those, you are not required to use the food purchasing form.
Oh, I was referring to the form you had mentioned before this one. The one where you circle the monthly.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I'm going to turn off my video. I'm wondering if that's why my computer is kind of acting up, because I'm not finding the chat. So let me find the chat. What was your question about that? Form?
So you know how we have daily sheets, and you write down whatever you give them at point of service. So whenever you guys come for the visit, do you want to see the daily sheet and the monthly sheet, or how does that work?
So we will, when we come out to do a review, we will ask to see your attendance records and we'll ask to see any supporting documentation. So if you have the 2 sheets, we will ask to see both of them because one will show the claim amount. So if you say you do the one with the circles, one will show the claim amount,
Right.
but one will show the amount for that you have, like it will matches your attendance records and your production records and everything else. So we'll actually need both. Does that make sense?
Got it. Yes, thank you. And if we do it on Bright Wheel, is that allowed to, or like
I've actually
you-
never heard of Bright Wheel. So what I would tell you to do is you have your consultant tell them that what you want to do and then ask them about, I would ask them about it.
Okay.
And because I probably want to take a look at it to see what it does.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks for letting me know. I could see that there was a question, but I was like, I can't. But yeah, I think it's because my I'm wondering if because the video uses a lot of stuff. So I will take off the video, and that way, hopefully this time it will work much, much, much better. So one other thing is if you use a vendor or if you use anything that's super detailed, like we have some people that do the grocery pickup, or they use the Sam's pickup. If you do anything like that, you do not have to use the food purchasing form because it's so detailed. It shows us the size of it. It shows us a picture. It says like if you pick up from Sam's or use like Tankersley or Benny Keith or Cisco, it will say like you bought 3 cases, which is of 4 gallons in each case of 1% milk. So it's very detailed. The one thing you do need to be aware of is we have to have, if you do any grocery pickup or any delivery services, it must be the receipt after the food has been picked up. So if it's a receipt that just says that, hey, we submitted it, it's disallowed. We have to use the one after it's been picked up. And something else, and again, this is something that when we talk about the financial side, now we're going to ask to see like a profit loss sheet when we come out to do your review. So when we look at your profit loss, it's letting us know as an organization that you have funds, that you're financially viable. We have to see that during your review, just your latest profit loss. You may have an accountant. We may need to see bank statements. We need to see that information. But we can ask to see any information at all during the review, supporting documentation. So we'll probably see bank statements to also verify these purchases with your CACFP. So because we understand too, if you did it, it's your pending order, it may be one price, but by the time, like if you do grocery pickup with Walmart, there could be 3 things that were substituted or 3 things that were not there. So the price is going to be different. So we have to have the latest one. And a lot of times we'll kind of look at your bank statements to validate all that information. Okay, we talked about that. Let's see here. Now, this is what the food purchasing form looks like. And we do have this electronic, and a lot of people love this form electronically because it does help. But you do have to put the unit size, the number of that you bought, and the description under the food and milk. So just make sure you have that information there. You have the food and milk column. You have the food related column. So that would be stuff like foil, paper plates, paper towels, and then non-reimbursable is anything that you purchase but is not allowable for the USDA program. So maybe when you go out there, you bought cookies, and cookies are not a reimbursable item, so that would go in the non-reimbursable section. But the total has to match, the grand total must match the total on the receipt. It can be off by a penny, and the reason why it's going to be because of taxes. If you have all 3 filled out or even 2 filled out, the taxes could get a little bit off. But you do have to have the grand total does have to match your receipt total, because we had some that they were doing the food and milk and the food related, but they wouldn't write down the non-reimbursable. You have to. Everything on that receipt has to go someplace on this form. And you can use multiple forms if you need to. Something else that has changed, if you've been on the program, we used to allow for donated products. That is no longer the case. We will not accept donated food or milk can no longer be a part of the reimbursable meal. If anybody wants to donate anything, like I've had a church that they had a great guy. He was just the sweetest. He liked to go to Sam's and just buy stuff for the kids. And they would take it and they would serve it as an extra. You just can't use it as part of the reimbursable meal. So what you do at the end of the month is with those food purchasing receipts. Now, I will tell you, if you are using, say, the Walmart grocery pickup or the Tankersley and all that stuff, you do not have to use that food purchasing form. but we still do need to know if it's food or non-food related. So like, for instance, if you get your receipt may be, if you use a vendor, it might be set up with food at the top and a total, and non-food related at the bottom, like your foil, your paper plates, and all that stuff at the bottom with a total. That's great. But if you're using, let's say, Walmart, and it's all mumble jumbled, we do someplace on that receipt, we need you to put the total for food related, and we need a total for food purchases, because it does go on the expenditure worksheet in those columns. You can put labor on there. So what this is when you're filling out your application, you put like any labor that you might be using for CACFP. You can only charge, so, and I'm going to explain what this worksheet does for us. So what this worksheet is, the expenditure worksheet, is at the end of the month, you list all your receipts that you got for that month. So if we're in the month of December now, January, sorry. If we're in January, so you'll list all your January receipts and for the month of January. What we do is we take a look at all the information on your expenditure worksheet, and we look at how much you got reimbursed. So we give you reimbursed. We reimburse you. It's called a blended rate, but it's based on your free, reduced, and not eligible kids. So say we give you $1,000 a month in reimbursement. You have to spend that money, that $1,000, the $1,000 or more, it has to be spent on our program. And that's what this worksheet does. You're showing us what you're spending your CACFP funds on. So you can do labor. So you may have your cook, and you can put your whole cook salary on there, but it does need to be in your budget. If it's not in your budget, you can't charge it off. We will validate we'll be looking at the pay stubs. And you can, so say for instance, you have a teacher or a cook, and you're paying them $9 an hour right now. They're new, but then they have they can make up to $12 an hour. Or we may have you put it, I can't remember if we make you put it in there annually. So say that they're making $15,000 a year, and but they have a chance of getting a promotion to where they can make up to $25,000 per year. Go ahead and put the $25,000 in the budget, because it's just what you think that they might get. And then when we approve that, then you can put like on your expenditure worksheet, and again, your consultant will help with that. You will put on there the cook salary. Let's just say for the month it's $1,000. So you'll put the name of the cook. You have to put their hours times. So if they work 8 hours, times how much they make per hour, and then that's what you will charge off. So again, if you do anything in cash or by Venmo, it is not allowed. It has to be verifiable, and we have to use a pay stub. USDA will not allow us, if you pay labor in cash, we used to, but they said no more. You cannot look at cash. It has to be something that's verifiable with like a pay stub. So just FYI, if you happen to pay in cash or Venmo or Cash App or anything like that, we can't use that as a CACFP expense. So the summary report of all allowable expenditures will be your food, your non-food, and any miscellaneous expenses. And what could be a miscellaneous expense could be like maybe your toaster went out, so you bought a new toaster, and you use it for CACFP. Anything like that, you can also put it on non-food, but you can put it in miscellaneous. So essentially what we're making sure of when we're looking at your expenditures is that you're telling, and we understand like some months you may get reimbursement of $1,000, and between food and labor and everything else, you may be spending $700 that month. But what we'll do is we'll take and look at everything as a whole. So we will go back several months to make sure that within like the 3-month operating that you have spent, essentially you're spending more than what we're reimbursing you for our program. And again, it can only be on things that are for our program. We call it CACFP money. You can only spend CACFP money on CACFP allowable items. So again, any charges off to CACFP must be in the budget. Like again, we talked about the labor. It will prove it in our office. Any items that are used for the entire center, like say paper towels, you must prorate the cost. So just because you buy paper towels, you can't put it all on CACFP if you're using it for your whole center. What you can do is say like, hey, I'm going to take half of it out for CACFP purposes because you use it in the kitchen, but maybe you also use it in the bathrooms. but also maybe using the rooms. So the rooms, it's maybe more, they're washing their hands, not just at mealtime. So you have to prorate it. So what some people do is maybe 1 month they'll charge all the towels to us, but the next month they won't charge any. Or maybe they'll take the receipt and put like a half on there and just say if it's $10, they charged 5 off to CACFP and then 5 was for the center. But again, only items or services solely used for CACFP can be charged off to our program. And that's what we talk about when you charge it off, is it goes on that expenditure reimbursement. It lets us know. So we need you to be financially viable, meaning you're in a for-profit status, or if you're a nonprofit, you have to have, we have to show that you're being supplemented. But when it comes down to our program and our funds, you have to be what we call a nonprofit status. So the nonprofit status means that you're spending all the money that we give you and more that we give. So if you're giving $1,000 a month, you should be spending $1,000. You should be doing at least $1,200 between everything that we're spending. And if not, then you need to serve better food products. You can do all kinds of stuff. But again, everything that we're giving you has to go back into the program. This is some items that are not allowable. So example, if you're doing paper towels for the bathroom, if you're buying holiday decorations, any food served to a non-program person, anything for your classrooms. If you are buying anything that does not meet meal pattern requirements, for instance, cookies or donuts, or say that you're buying like non-CN labeled chicken nuggets, and anything like that does not meet meal pattern requirements, you can't charge it off. And I'm gonna there's a caveat. If it's an ingredient, you can serve it, but if it's a standalone item that does not meet requirements, you can't do it. So an example of that is Velveeta. It does not count on our program, but if you're making macaroni and cheese and you use the Velveeta, the macaroni is creditable. The Velveeta is it's not a meat alternate, but you're using it as an ingredient. So anything that's not claimed for reimbursement, I've had a couple of centers, and especially with COVID, that when we get there, they may be low on staff or anything like that. And they're like, we're just going to order a pizza from Little Caesars, and that's what we're feeding them for lunch today. Well, Little Caesars does not count. There's no product formulation statement. There's no CN label. But if they're like, hey, we'll buy the $5 pizzas and we're just going to not claim the meal. You can put that on your production record, like order pizza, not claiming. That's fine. They didn't list anything in the meals counts, but you are allowed to serve things that don't meet, but you just can't claim the meal. But if you don't claim it, then you can't charge it off to CACFP. So inventory. Inventory is optional. It is not required. I wish it was required. It's very helpful when it's required. That we have one for food, and then you also have one for end of the month milk. And I would tell you to make sure you definitely do the end of the month milk inventory. The reason being is at the end of the month, we cannot look at receipts from previous months. So if we're looking at your receipts and you're short on milk, but you had like 10 gallons of milk in your fridge, because say you went to the grocery store on December 31st, and we're looking at, say you went to the grocery store on November 30th, and we're looking at everything in December. We can't look at the receipt from November 30th, but we can look at anything that you have on inventory. So what we'll do is we'll ask if you have any inventory, and you'll give that to us, and then we'll add whatever you had left over that you were putting into the month of December. So if you had on the last day of the month 10 gallons left over, then we can look at that for the month of December, that you had those 10 extra gallons of milk. It's the same with food. We cannot look at food purchases from previous months, but we can, if you keep inventory, we can add it in.
So can that be a digital receipt as well, or does it have to be paper?
What do you mean by digital? Like
if you order from Sam's, for example, it keeps your record of what you ordered.
Yeah, we would have you at least keep that out, print that out, so that way, because if we're gonna have to have a copy of it anyway, for the state auditor, and because you probably don't want to just give us your password and stuff, so we can look, because we have to look at the receipts to make sure that what you're serving. Are you talking about for like your inventory? Or
I guess so. I'm not 100% sure yet, because
that's okay. Learning. That's okay. So with the receipts, it's showing us what you purchased for the month, and we do have to have a copy of that.
Okay, yeah, that makes it clear. Thank you.
I wonder, I don't know what keeps going on. I will not use my monitor. So but if you do have inventory, that's something separate. There's a form in the training manual. Like, so are you new and not claimed before?
We're new. We never claimed. We're brand new at doing this.
Okay, we won't know until after you do a month, to be honest with you. It's called a blended rate. It has to do with how many kids you have, with if they're free, reduced, and not eligible. It's based on the number of serving days. So you won't know until your first claim, to be honest.
Okay, and now all of our children are free.
They are all free?
Because of the population we serve. We know that. All of them are homeless. You can't attend our center without experiencing homelessness currently.
Okay, so then if they're all free, you would basically take the free rate and multiply it by the number of kids that you have in care.
Okay. And I find out that free rate where?
I think it might be listed in the resource library.
Okay.
It will be the same rate as schools, essentially, too. You can even Google it, just USDA rates.
Oh, so is it the same that I do because we have USDA school lunch program.
Okay.
Is it the same?
It will be the same. It will be the same. It'll be a little bit different. You won't get the additional 7 cents because that does not exist for CACFP.
Okay.
And you will get the cash. So you are getting commodities now. You will not get commodities with us, but we'll pay you for the commodities instead. So you'll get a little extra, because right now that amount is kind of going to commodities for school, okay, but we will pay that rate to you in the check.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's maybe all I have. We're attending the meal pattern training as well. So.
Yeah, and that's today at 1.
Okay, I think that maybe I'll hang around a little bit and see if I have anything else.
Okay, Kendra, one more question, and then that's it. How will we find out who our consultant is? Is that something we should already know?
No. What county are you in?
Muskogee.
Okay, so if you go out, so Oklahoma has 4 consultants. Tulsa has 2. So that's why we don't know in those counties, but I think it's going to, I'm trying to think on the top of my head. What, your Muskogee County, hold on. It will be Tammy Flute.
Tammy Flute with a T?
Yes, Flute.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
She has Muskogee, Muskogee County.
Do you know how soon she'll be contacting us?
No, so what happens is once you do all your requirements, and once your application is completely approved, then they send Tammy a box. They may send it to you, but then Tammy has 30 days to come and do the approval visit once the box has been shipped or received.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? All right. Well, again, I'll be back at Mill Patterns. I hope to see you guys then. Thank you guys. Have a great, great day. You guys can always, again, contact us. I sent an email yesterday about this information. If you have any other questions, again, you can always reach out if it's anything regarding anything that we talked about. So feel free to contact us. You can contact me until you get your consultant if you don't have one. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.